Congratulations, welcome to the Hawk family for the fall 2021 class. We are very excited to welcome you for this fall semester. Although we would love to have had this in person and on campus, having the ability to meet you in a virtual world and get you closer to all these fabulous faculty members that you'll see today is kind of unique in this sense. We can't do this even virtually. So we're very excited that you joined us today. A few housekeeping items before we get going. Today's Hawk Talk is all about sort of three different departments. It's about history, it's about political science, and it's about the urban studies program at Hunter. While they seem like they're not related, they're actually very related in content and maybe related within your interests too. So you will hear from all three and you'll have a chance to ask the questions live as well. Speaking of questions, there's a little Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions about the event today, if you have any questions specific to the faculty members, please put them in the Q&A. We will have a live Q&A section at the end of this. We will ask those questions live. And last but not least, we do have some current students from a few programs that are here to tell you about their perspective and their experience in the programs as well. So without further ado, I would love to introduce you to Professor Feldman, who's going to tell you a little bit about the political science program first.
Thank you very much, Irina. Now, I have to offer my initial apology. I'm having technical internet difficulties, and so I'm currently connected by my phone. So I'm not going to be able to do any screen sharing or visual presentations for everybody. But I'm going to talk through some of the exciting features of the political science major, and hopefully you will be able to follow up with access to other information online if you want to pursue it more. The department website that we have at Hunter has a lot of information there for you to explore. So if you're interested in politics and government, and you know, everyone is either very interested right now or kind of sick of politics and government right now. But if you're interested, one of the wonderful things about the major at Hunter is you really get to study a tremendous variety of political phenomena within the confines of the major political science. So let me just give you a little sampling of sort of some of our current courses that have either going to be taught or have been taught in the recent past. So we have offerings on American electoral politics with a focus on the rise of right-wing populism, courses on the politics of India since 1947, courses on the theory and practice of democratic socialism, courses on emergency powers and crisis powers in constitutional democracies, a course on how the war on drugs has impacted US foreign policy, course on social movements in Latin America, a course on the political thought of the revolutionary Frantz Fanon, and a course on how the global financial system has shaped and is shaped by political dynamics. So as you can see, there's a lot of different topics and areas of the world covered in our department and major. And that's one of the great things about political science in general, and I think about political science at Hunter in particular, is that it's a very diverse and eclectic discipline. So we're divided into 4 central subfields, which is fairly typical in political science: US politics, the study of politics in the United States; comparative politics, which is our term for the study of all politics of all the countries outside of the United States; international relations, which concerns the relations between states; and political theory. And you can really dive into an area that interests you within our department. So we have the breadth that you can study with professors who are experts in the politics of South Asia, Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe. And of course, if the politics of the US is of interest to you, you can dive into courses devoted to American politics, including, I should add, the US legal system and constitutional law. So just as an aside, while there's no need to be a political science major if you want to go to law school, a lot of our majors do go on to law school. And one of the nice things about the political science major is you can take a lot of law-related classes within the major and get a taste of the kinds of things you might be doing in law school. We have courses on law taught both by political science PhDs as well as practicing lawyers. If you're interested in the state-to-state dynamics of war and peace and foreign policy, we have coursework there. And if you're interested in some of the foundational questions of political life, what is justice? What is a legitimate political order? How should a political community be structured? You can explore those within the field of political theory. One more nice element of the political science major I should add is that because the field is kind of eclectic and diverse, you get to read a lot of different kinds of texts and engage with different kinds of questions. So you might be looking at quantitative political research and statistics. You might also be looking at political philosophical texts. You might be looking at ethnographies of political life. So you get to read a diverse array of materials and evaluate different kinds of evidence. While the department is diverse and eclectic, the department is unified around really promoting the critical reading and writing skills of its students. So one of the things to note is that almost all of our political science courses are writing intensive. So you won't be doing a lot of multiple choice tests and that kind of thing within our courses. You're more likely to be writing essays and also getting sustained feedback on your writing. So one of the things many of our majors note is how the sort of process of writing within political science has led to real improvements in their writing as they get feedback on drafts and they work on the clarity of their expression, how to use evidence, how to craft arguments, and the like. A couple other aspects of the major that I wanted to note. An exciting thing that we offer is the opportunity for you to combine work in the classroom with experiential learning opportunities. A couple of things here to note. The first are the internships. So we have a lot of students who secure internships in the political field and they get major credit for doing the internship and working under the supervision of a faculty member where you do some research in a related political science area and integrate that with your kind of experience in the internship itself. So I've supervised students interning for city councilors, members of Congress, law offices, the New York State Supreme Court, various non-governmental organizations, and UN agencies. The second exciting experiential learning opportunity I wanted to mention is our Model UN program. So this is a chance for you to participate in the Hunter College Model UN team, which is an award-winning team, and it gives you great experience with researching, negotiating, and public speaking at Model UN conferences, and you can get course credit for that as well. Finally, we offer an option for students to complete an honors thesis, which is a 2-semester sustained research project in your senior year. And students have crafted some wonderful research projects in their honors theses. I've personally supervised students who've done work, honors thesis on the deportation of US citizens, a comparison of Guantanamo Bay, a detention center with maximum security prisons, a project on the abolition of juries in Singapore, and a research on the religious rights of prisoners in the United States, just as some examples. And if another of my colleagues was here, they would give you an array of honors theses that they've supervised that might look completely different, but just as intriguing. So I will stop there, and apologies for my low-tech presentation.
Totally fine. There's definitely no tech needed. You mentioned everything that there needs to be covered. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Professor Hurwitz from the History Department. They're all yours.
Hi, everybody. I have to say, after listening to Professor Feldman, I'm thinking about switching to be a poli-sci major. So I'm not certain if I'll be on target with this presentation. I first of all wanted to just say how excited we are that you've been admitted to Hunter College. You should be super proud of yourselves for getting in, and we're really eager for you to come join us here. I just today wanted to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be a major in history. Probably you've taken a handful of history classes across high school, and maybe you've arrived at a point where you feel like, oh, I'm sick of history. And one of the things I just wanted to emphasize for you is that the way we study and explore history in college is really different, I think, typically than the way it's pursued in many high schools, which is to say that history, the way we approach it in our department, is not about memorizing names and dates and places. It's not about cramming a litany of facts into your brain. Much more as historians, we're much more interested in the process of kind of making meaning and understanding what drove events in the past to happen. So to that end, I tend to think of historians as being really excited to be storytellers, right? That story part of history when you get to college becomes a big part of what we do. We're working out what are the compelling narratives of the past and why are certain stories of the past so meaningful to us. I think in addition, we're also see ourselves as a kind of social science. You know, really history is on the one hand like an English class because we're interested in story, but also like a science, a social science class, because we're also interested in figuring out if we have this data, say, of changes in population, say of New York City over several decades, what is that evidence of? What argument can I prove using that data from changes? And so I think history at the college level is about both of those together, about looking for stories, for narratives that make meaning out of the past, and also looking to build arguments that explain, using data, using evidence, why change happened the way that it did. Now, just to give you a sense of the kinds of courses you would find in our department, certainly at the intro level, there might be classes, let's say like an introduction to European history or introductory classes for US history that would in some ways cover material, let's say, that you studied in your courses in high school. And if that was the case, you might be able to simply skip over those courses. In our department, we don't require you to take any of our 100 level introductory courses. What I think would be more interesting for you would be the courses that show up at our more advanced levels, our 200 and 300 level courses. And so let's just see if I can scribble here for a second. Just to say, well, for instance, at the 200 level, oh, whoops, that didn't quite work. Here's a great class that I've taught it in the past about history and theater. And we're looking at historical plays like Hamilton to see what kind of stories are being told about the past there. Or here's a class about Jewish history in New York, where the professor in the class often end up on walking tours around the city. Here's exploring Middle East history or Mexican history since independence. So we're really looking beyond just the United States and Europe in our classes. If we go to the even more advanced classes, well, just to look at this list again, you'll see there are classes, classical history, like Roman history, classes about indigenous peoples in Latin America, a class from Professor Haywood that looks at African-American history through the lens of hip hop, as well as a class, let's say, from Professor Rosenthal that looks at the history of refugees around the world. So all of these classes take you on a deep dive into topics that you've probably never had the chance to investigate before. But I'm certain if you look at this list, and this is just from the past semester, there are classes here that would excite and intrigue you. At least that would be my hope if you're thinking about joining the history department. One of the things that is really exciting about the history majors is that all of our majors end up learning not just stories or arguments about the past, but how to be historians themselves, how to do research and how to write history themselves. And so by the end of your time as a history major, students do independent projects. And just to give you an idea of some of the projects students have done in the past, someone wrote a great sort of thesis about Wonder Woman and how her story was significant in the history of comic books. Others have studied young women in the factories of Massachusetts, Jewish communities in early India, Guatemalan refugees, madams in New York City and their role in New York City prostitution, as well as Rent and other plays. And this is similar to what Professor Feldman said, just a handful. Really, these projects are driven by students' own interests and what they're curious to work on. And similar to what Professor Feldman was saying about poli-sci in history, we have students who end up in a variety of internships as part of their work in the major. These are internships in city government, as well as at museums around the city, like the Museum of the American Indian, the Museum of Natural History. I have a student who started there as an intern and ended up getting a job there. The League of Women Voters, someone is an intern there now. So there are many opportunities to kind of take your historical skills into the world as part of the history major. And to that end, I would just flag for you the variety of careers that people take their history majors. Certainly, there are students. My dad was a history major in college and now is a lawyer, so he would want that to be at the top of the list. There are students who become lawyers following their history major. There are students, though, who go into museum work because museums are a way of kind of teaching history to the general public. People who go to work for city government or the State Department. We have a couple of students who've gone on into archaeology, and a bunch of students who've ended up being middle and high school teachers, actually elementary school teachers as well. Journalism, of course, journalists are the historians of the present moment. So the skills of analysis and storytelling that we emphasize are vital there as well. And my own favorite is that we have students who are going on to become playwrights, to use theater as a way to tell stories about the past. All of that to say that studying history, and probably this is true of the many things you'll study at Hunter, but what I know about is that studying history can open up so many doors for you, intellectual doors as well as professional doors. And so we'd be excited to meet you and have you join us here.
Thank you so much. That was a stellar overview. I do have some questions that are coming in, so I'm going to keep them for the Q&A afterwards.
Great.
Next up, we have Professor Goodfriend from our Urban Studies program. They're all yours.
Thank you very much, Irina. Okay, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you're all either coming to Hunter or interested in coming to Hunter. It is a great place. And I just want to say that overall, there's a whole bunch of great academic options here, and you're only hearing about 3 of them, but it is really a terrific place. But you might be wondering, because it's not a subject that you necessarily study in high school, what is urban studies? I'm going to try to tell you 3 things today. What is urban studies? What do people do with it? And then at the end, how would I start if I'm interested? First of all, this question of what is urban studies? At its core, it's about this idea of being an effective problem solver, an agent of change. And real life situations that need to be improved are messy and complicated. And to solve them, you need to learn the tools that come from all different disciplines. So you do need to learn, how did we get here? What's the story, as Professor Hurwitz was talking about? What are the causes of this problem that I want to solve? And you also need to understand how the politics works, as Professor Feldman was talking about. What are the institutional arrangements? What are the existing policies? And where do I push to change those things? But you also might want to understand some things from sociology about the way people experience certain urban situations and the way people talk about it and represent it in the media, from, say, that you might learn about in a media studies course or in a literature course. So it's an interdisciplinary major. It's based on the idea that learning the intellectual tools, the analytical tools, and the communication tools from multiple disciplines, you can combine them to be a problem solver. So that's kind of the driving thing in our Department of Urban Studies, is about people that want to be agents of change, people that want to be problem solvers, and the major is organized around that. Not everybody's interested in the same issues, and certainly when you start as a major or take your first urban studies course, you don't need to know what problems it is that you are the ones that you feel like you want to take on. It's about equipping you to be an effective professional in many, many different settings that you might go on to in life. Because the statistics are that for somebody your age, you're going to have half a dozen different careers. And so my goal in this program isn't to equip you for any one, it's to equip you to do multiple, to do this and be able to shift to do that and be able to shift to do that. And so it's interdisciplinary, and it's about problem solving and complex communication. We live in a world that's so filled with people that oversimplify and make it seem like messy, complicated real world problems can be solved with, a solution that is 1 sentence or 1 tweet long. And that doesn't work, because they're complicated problems and they need complex analysis. And that's what you'll learn how to do as an urban studies major. So let me give you some examples. Some are in the public sector. You've already heard of some of that today, but today's One of the top deputy mayors is an urban studies graduate from Hunter. The mayor's chief of staff is one of our graduates. The parks commissioner, who runs the whole park system for New York City, is one of our graduates. But also the entrepreneur that started as a small startup company in Silicon Valley, a bike share company called Jump Bike. It's now it's like City Bike, but those of you that are from Staten Island, those are the bikes that you can rent on Staten Island and in DC and in some other cities. The entrepreneur that started that company was a graduate of our department. He just sold that company for, I think, like $5 billion, that he sold it to Google. So problem solving doesn't have to mean that you're planning on being impoverished either. But also, you might have seen in the news over the last year, the Black Lives Matter murals that were painted in Lower Manhattan on Fifth Avenue in front of the Trump Tower and in DC. The person who was in charge of the design and implementation of those street murals was one of our graduates. But we also have people that go into real estate development, people who become starters or leaders of nonprofit organizations that are advocating for things like sustainability, doing something better with our waste stream with garbage, trying to make cities greener. There's all different directions that you can go. And that's really one of the things that I like about this major, is that there's just multiple paths out there. And it equips you for all of them in different ways. Another way to give you a feel for that is to tell you about our awesome faculty. Our department has 2 graduate programs as well as the undergraduate urban studies major. And between the 3 of them, we have a national reputation where we're able to attract scholars from all over the country. Our recent faculty hires, we were able to steal faculty from University of Michigan, from University of Pennsylvania, from Columbia. We get faculty that could be teaching at the very top institutions in the country. And because our department is a center of excellence, it's something that they want to do. And of course, if you're interested in cities and city problem solving, where else would you want to do that except New York? And of the departments of that ilk in New York, we're certainly the leader, and we're one of the national leaders. So now I'll tell you a little bit about their specialties. The guy people turn to when they talk about education reform and reforming the New York City school system, which we clearly need, the public school system, is one of our faculty members. We have another faculty member who is working on a huge multi-million-dollar research project about studying and improving the access to healthcare for recent immigrants, especially from Asia, but in general, how immigrants access healthcare, because the healthcare system is kind of normed to assume a particular group, and not everybody thinks of healthcare in the same way or has access to it in the same way, and he's studying that. We have somebody else who's really looking at garbage waste, water waste, and all kinds of pollution that comes from that, and how those systems can be improved. Another one of our faculty is the authority on affordable housing and affordable housing policies and the tools that might be available to fix the increasing squeeze that most New Yorkers are feeling about the lack of access to affordable housing. So those are just some examples. I'll give you one last example, somebody who brings kind of the environmental sustainability piece, somebody who's just looking at using technical satellite-based mapping software, which we will teach you to do if you want, about how you can use the combination of maps to model where the tree cover is in urbanized areas and where prevailing winds are and what direction the sun comes from to minimize the energy needs of entire real estate developments. So that's a combination of real estate sustainability and some really cool tech tools. And you can imagine all the different professional directions that working on that kind of project can take you in. So that's kind of just giving you a feel for it. We only have a few minutes. I'm sure some of you have questions about all 3 presentations. So I'll just move on to how would I start if I was interested in this? And the quick answer is we have an introductory course that we call Urban Life, and it is experiential. It is about this combination of getting out into the city and really seeing the things that you've seen but not really thought about in your life. Combining detailed observation and really collecting data, quantitative data, but also visual data, just looking, thinking, recording, bringing that back into the classroom, working with classmates on group projects, and combining that with academic reading that teaches you how to analyze what it is you've seen and experienced. So it's very experiential, but it's about really analyzing the place that you live your life and helping you understand it better so that you can make it better as an agent of change. And that's that core course that people start with, urban life, and it draws on a lot of social sciences. And then we also encourage people when they're first getting started in urban studies to take a course that brings in a lot of the humanities, experiencing the museums and cultural products of all different racial and ethnic groups in New York City, and seeing all the different multiplicities of life beyond your neighborhood and where you come from, to think of the city as this mix of all kinds of awesome things that sometimes there's clashes and sometimes there's awesome combinations, and how you can make sense of that from the humanities side in addition to the social science side, so you can be a great problem solver and a really effective, ultimately effective college graduate who can do lots of different things. So I'll leave that there. I know that sounds very general and big picture. It's just all about commitment to being a change agent with idea of trying to make things better, but everybody is allowed to have a different understanding of what that means, making things better. And I guess I'll turn it back over to Irina so that she can handle Q&A stuff here.
Perfect. That was a perfect way to round off all three departments, I think. So I really appreciate that. I am going to invite our students who are in the room right now. I have Colleen and Kayla, and we're going to ask them about their experience at Hunter. So Kayla, if you want to go first, time is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Kayla. I'm a current sophomore at Hunter. I double major in political science and Chinese language and literature with a minor in Japanese language. I'm a part of our Thomas Hunter's honors program and Chinese flagship programs here at Hunter. And outside of like academics, I'm also in our undergraduate student government as our external affairs commissioner. I'm the current Hunter delegate to the University Student Senate, and I also work as a student ambassador for the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. But why I chose political science as my major, it actually goes back to my first semester freshman year. I had Professor Maxwell Perderer for Poli Sci 110, and he just sold political science to me. Like I had no idea what I wanted to major in, but he was so passionate about government and like explaining the class that I was like, okay. I was actually considering between history and political science. So he sold the class for me and I was like, okay, political science is what I'm gonna do. And I'm super happy I chose that because so far I've taken 6 classes in the major. I'm taking my 7th right now. And I just love all the classes, all the information that we're doing. It's amazing.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Kayla. Colleen. Colleen is a history major. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Colleen. I am a freshman at Hunter. I'm actually triple majoring in history, sociology, and classical studies. I'm originally from Binghamton, which is in upstate New York, but I'm currently coming to you today from Hunter's dorms in New York City. And I didn't know what I wanted to do until probably my senior year of high school. And I realized that I was really interested in my history classes in high school. And I also was hoping to attend law school after I get my bachelor's degree. And I felt like history and law school would go hand in hand. And so that's why I decided to come into Hunter with a history major. And I'm so glad that I did, because I know, like Professor Hurwitz mentioned earlier, studying history in college really gives you a whole different perspective on it. It is a lot different than my high school history classes. And I'm really able to focus on specific topics that really interest me, as opposed to, studying all of world history in one year. I really enjoy focusing on specific topics in history at Hunter.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Colleen. We're going to go right into the Q&A. We have gotten some questions, but a quick reminder for the students in the room, don't forget there's a little Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Put your questions in there and we'll ask them live. So the first question, and I think this one comes right after all of our students, the 2 students introduce themselves, and they're doing like 9 majors and 17 minors. How do you manage all of this? Is it possible to manage the coursework? Tips and tricks, Kayla?
So I definitely think it's possible. I think your calendar will be your best friend. I use Google Calendar. I just input all my classes. If I have any meetings during the week, if I want to schedule a call with my friend, to put that in your calendar so you know when you have free breaks to just like relax and stuff. But definitely calendar will be your best friend. Make sure you write down when assignments are due, because every professor will have a syllabus. Some of them might have a schedule in the syllabus. So then you'll know, okay, exams are on this date. this homework assignment is due on this date. So it's really important to have all those things written down so that you can see it and that you don't hand in assignments late or not at all. So that's really important.
Awesome. Kalina, follow-up question to that. How did you figure out that you want to triple major? What if somebody is asking, what if they want to major in history and minor in urban studies? Do you think that's doable? Can you do it later? How did you do all that in the beginning?
I think going along with what Kayla said, it's really important to plan. And I know that multiple majors is not something you can plan short term, but taking the time to make a long-term plan for yourself. I know that it involved a lot of back and forth between me and my advisors. So, reaching out to people who can help you and support you, advisors in the department, advisors in the Office of Admissions, reaching out to those people who can support you and teach you more about these programs is really important. So I'm glad to see that you're all here today learning about these programs, but you can always reach out to people who can tell you more about it and how to make that work for your schedule and your time at Hunter.
Perfect.
Irina, can I make just a quick comment? I think that was great advice from both Kayla and Colleen. I just want to say I was a poli-sci major as an undergraduate, and then my PhD is in history. I think all three of these are great options. And I just want to encourage you, as you're making your long-term plan, it's those of you that are entering as freshmen, be open to experimentation in your first couple terms. You're going to find awesome subjects that weren't even accessible to you in high school. And you might find that second or third subject that you want to minor in or double major in or change majors by experimenting, and be open to that, especially in your first year.
And I was just about to pass it off to you guys too, to the faculty in the room, to talk a little bit about what would you recommend for a freshman who's not certain whether they want to go in a specific direction. What would you recommend in their freshman year to take and do to kind of get an interest in what it is that they're interested in, to find out really? Professor Goodfriend, since you're up, you want to take this one?
Sure. I mean, aside from just experimenting, I mean, I'm a believer that, as I said, I believe in these three disciplines. Obviously, I want you to take our Intro Urban Life course in your freshman year, and that counts towards one of the general ed requirements. But I think also take a history course. If you liked American history, it's absolutely true. It's totally different at the college level, where you really get to think about what is the story here and why does it matter? And it doesn't actually matter whether something happened in 1843 or 1845. What matters is what happened and why do we still need to remember it now? And take an intro political science course and learn about how government really works, not the civics class that you had to take in high school, but how really do the political actors make their decisions? And no matter which of these three directions you go, having those other two courses will make you a better student and make you a more complete person, because you're forming you right now, and that's so much fun to get to do. So be broad and experiment. That's the advice I would give you.
Yeah, I think I would just echo that and just encourage you to, I think the college gives us a lot of guidelines, gen ed requirements, and you have to check all these boxes. And I think sometimes we can get too caught up in, well, I need to do this and do this and do this, and let that govern what decisions you make, especially in the first year or two. And I think Professor Goodfriend I love what he's saying, because I think you should take risks. And, I've always been curious about computer science, or I've always been curious about the history of music, or I've always wanted to take a acting class, or whatever it is. This is your opportunity to pursue those things that haven't been in your school's curriculum before, but now are in front of you as possibilities. So yes, you should do some of the requirements, because that's part of the path towards getting your final degree, but pursue the things that really excite you, and explore opportunities that are new, because kind of finding your intellectual and ultimately professional passions is really a huge goal for while you're at college.
Thank you so much. I'm going to fine tune the question a little bit for Professor Feldman. You've mentioned a few different tracks within the department. So if the student is not sure which track to go into within the specific program, what would you recommend for them?
That's a great question. So one of the things I should say is our major, we don't have any official sort of concentration requirement or anything like that. So we have a very simple subfield requirement that you should take one course in each of the 4 general fields of political science. But after that, it's very much up to you if you want to really take, nothing but American politics classes after that, or nothing but political theory, or if you want to sort of spread yourself around the different areas. As far as starting, we have a couple of 100 level courses, and I was very pleased to see that, to hear that one of them was successful in this regard, Political Science 110, Intro to American Politics, and then also Poli-Sci 100, which is our Introduction to Politics course that kind of covers all of the political issues and areas in an introductory level outside of the US. So political theory, comparative politics, and international relations. So either of those 100 level courses, I think, is a great starting point for checking out what political science is like, and seeing if it's something you want to pursue further, or if it's something that you say, wow, that was really interesting, and now I know what political science is about. So I would recommend beginning there. That said, if you feel like you have already are ready to dive into the 200 level political science courses, our 200 level classes do not, generally speaking, have prerequisites. So, you know, if you feel like there's a course that just speaks to exactly what you're interested in, it's okay to make a 200 level course be your first political science class. And you can always work your way back and say, oh, you know, this made me realize I need to learn more about some of the foundational issues in the development of the American state. And then you could go back to 110 after that.
Thank you. A few questions came in that are very specific to all of your programs. The first one, I think I'm going to go with Professor Hurwitz. Students are asking, you mentioned there's a history and theater class, or history of theater class. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what are you studying there?
Yeah, sure. That's a class that I teach that, and of course that I love. Over the course of that semester, we read a bunch of historical plays. So we read, at the beginning, we look at Hamilton, right, the musical from the last several years, but we read also some very recent Broadway shows like Sweat. And I would say what we're really looking at is less to learn the history, the facts in these plays, and more to think about theater as a vehicle for presenting the past. I think we're so used to learning the past. You learn history, you sit in your history class, and the teacher or the professor gives you the past. And maybe we get it from museums a little bit as well. But what we're trying to do in this class is sort of step back and say, well, here's another way that people are learning the past. So many people learned the American Revolution by watching Hamilton. What did they get from encountering the past through theater that's different from when you read a book or a historical article or go to a museum? And one of the things we get really interested in is kind of what my students in the last round talked about, is kind of emotional learning. What happens when you start to really identify with the people from the past in the way that can happen in theater? And how is that a powerful way to encounter history? So it's a class that's more about methods or thinking about approaches to storytelling than it is about some specific topic or period of time.
Thank you. Professor Goodfriend, a question came in for you. So you mentioned that there's a lot of students who have graduated, alums who are doing some phenomenal things in the city. What type of services are offered for students who are looking for internships within the department to kind of guide them in that direction?
That's a great question. Thank you, whoever asked that. It is one of the requirements actually of our major that everybody get out and have some real roll up your sleeves experience. It's not only that many of our students have internships, it's that all of them do. And then we have a course that you take at the same time to help you discuss and process and think about the things you're learning in your internship. And the answer is the network that we have in the city. We have our own, it's not an internship placement service, but we're constantly sending out emails to all of our majors with all these openings that are sent to us from people in nonprofit organizations, advocacy organizations, and every single city agency who are constantly saying, hey, I've got an opening, or I need somebody to help me with this project. You know, I think 2/3 of the people that work in the part of the city transportation office that are trying to adapt the city to bicycles, that includes bike lanes, but it also includes what kinds of rules should there be, what kind of rules shouldn't there be, where do bikes park. 2/3 of that group are our graduates, and when they need some student help, they send us a note. Or if the Regional Plan Association that's trying to figure out how to organize this entire 20 county metropolitan area that has 25 million people, when they need some student help, they contact us because many of them know us and some of them went to our program. So our regional reputation gives us an extraordinary depth of possible placements, and we share those with our students when we get them. So there's lots of opportunities that are just in our own little pocket of internship opportunities.
I appreciate that answer. And next, we got a few questions that are about the pre-law track. All three departments have mentioned some sort of pre-law pathway. So I think it's helpful to know for the students who are in the room that the pre-professional tracks at Hunter do not require you to be any specific major. So you could be on the pre-law, pre-med, pre-vet, pre-optometry, pre-next big thing you want to do track with literally any major at Hunter. So you can study space science and still be on the pre-law track. And out of the two students, I have Colleen. Can you talk a little bit about the pre-law track experience as a student? What is that like?
Yeah, I have really enjoyed my experience in the pre-law track so far. Like Irina mentioned, you don't have to have any specific major. They don't tell you you have to take this, this, and this course. So it really allows you to be flexible and study what you want to study, while also giving you the resources to prepare for law school. So the pre-law program provides like Professor Goodfriend mentioned with the Urban Studies program, it also provides a lot of internship opportunities. I get emails just about every week with a list of opportunities that any students in the program can apply for, that they'd be eligible for. They also hold a lot of webinars where we meet with lawyers, government officials, other people who have been successful in that field, or a lot of Hunter alums too. So that's really helpful to make those connections, and it really helps you get your foot in the door and step out into the real world and prepare yourself for a career in law.
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. I think if anything we learned from today's session is that you can literally try out anything at Hunter and see if it sticks, see if you like it, see if something sparks your interest. When I first met Kayla, which was now 1.5 years ago, Kayla was an undecided student who came in and said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take another 2 years to figure it out. And then within a semester, she picked up like 7 majors and 3 minors. So guys, again, if you learned anything from today, is that you definitely want to make sure that you try out different things and make sure you step out of your comfort zone when you come to Hunter. The motto of Hunter is Mihi Cura Futuri, which stands for the care of the future is yours. So it is entirely on you to figure out what sticks for you, what you like and what you may not like, right? This is your college career. So definitely make sure you sort of step out and try out these new things. I want to say a huge thank you to my presenters today. Really appreciate your time for dedicating your time to our fall 2021 Hawks. Huge thank you to the students for offering your side of things as well. And then for the new students in the room, those who are coming for us for the fall 2021 semester, a few basic reminders. One, if what you heard today is it and you know that Hunter is your home for the next 4 years, make sure that you remember to submit your deposit and reserve your seat in the fall 2021 class. To do that, all you have to do is go to your CUNY first and do that all online. Don't forget that that needs to be done by May 1st. Now, second item, if you have any questions for the students in any of the programs that you heard from today, we have a really nifty UniBuddy platform. If you go back to the admissions page or the admitted students page, you can literally message us students directly. So if you have questions for Kayla, for Colleen, or any other student, any other major at Hunter, you can message them, ask them about their favorite class, favorite professors. I'm sure the ones you heard today will be among the favorites, but ask them questions. They love to hear from you. They love to share their experiences. They love to tell you the best like pizza place in the neighborhood for some reason. There's a whole bunch of that going on. But ask them questions. They want to hear from you. They want to connect with you. They want to show you what their Hunter experience has been like. And last but not least, we have a few other Hawk Talks scheduled for the rest of a month and a half, I would say. If you're interested in learning about other programs, trying out different things, learning about maybe languages or anything else that's happening at Hunter, all you have to do is go back to the admitted students page and sign up for another Hawk Talk. You can go to 1, 2, or all 70 some of them. We would love to see you at all of them, to be honest. But once again, congratulations. Welcome to the fall 2021 class. And we hope to see you at Hunter in the fall semester. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.